On December 29th, 2022, we lost a true legend of the game. Edson Arantes do Nascimento, simply known as Pele, is widely considered by football historians to be the greatest player of all time. In today's era of highly skilled and technical players, this seems to be a bold claim, but his accomplishments speak for themselves, and would say otherwise. Although we will admit that he existed in an era far before ours, the eye test proves that his skill transcends the boundaries of time. Pele was a goal-scoring machine that combined pace, grace, agility, technical dribbling, and uncanny anticipation into the game's first complete attacker. As a player who was far ahead of his time, he serves as the mold of modern footballers in today's game. His skill and impact exceed the mere boundaries of time. Pele is not just a legend, he is an icon. This project takes a comprehensive examination of Pele from a tactical perspective, on a career that subsequently led to a legacy that captivated and spellbound the world with such a grip that his name still carries significant weight to this day. He coined the term the beautiful game, and this is completely apt. His style of play was pure expression, and so much technical mastery of the ball that he could play with pure freedom and exert his will on it. In this expression there is beauty, a beauty that is now synonymous with the Brazilian style of play. It all originated with Pele. One of the greatest of all time, comes from humble beginnings. Born in Tres Corações, Pele was born into a footballing family, as his father was a former semi-professional football player, known throughout the region as Dondinho, with brief stints with Fluminense and Atlético Mineiro as a center forward. Despite this, Pele grew up in poverty in the mean streets of Bauru, a borough of Sao Paulo. When Pele was not helping his family, taking shifts as a server at tea and coffee shops, he was training with his father, using makeshift footballs such as socks stuffed with newspaper and grapefruit wrapped in yarn. Pele credits his mastery of the ball to long training sessions with his father, who fully devoted himself to Pele's young career when his own was cut short due to injury, and so it goes on. Within his autobiography titled Why Soccer Matters, Pele writes, "Besides the headers, there were two skills in particular that Dondinho wanted me to focus on: keeping the ball as close to my body as possible while dribbling, being able to do everything equally well with both feet." And indeed, the sage advice of Dondinho still rings true to this day. Pele's skill was apparent, and it did not take long for him to be picked up by a local futsal team in the area. Like so many Brazilian players who have gone on to dominate the modern game, Pele credits futsal as contributing a great deal to his mastery. The confined spaces, the smooth court, the pace of the game forced him to think faster, have a lighter touch on the ball, and operate within smaller areas. Pele writes, "In my mid-teens, I also played indoor football, which had just taken off in Bauru for a team called Radium, and took part in the first Futebol de Salão championship held in Bauru. We won," laments Pele. Futebol de Salão was a new thing which had just taken off in Bauru, and I took to it like a fish to water. It's a lot quicker than football on grass. You have to think really quickly because everyone is so close to each other. Learning the game probably helped me think on my feet better. By age 14, Pele was competing against grown men and dominating. Within his league, he finished as the leading goal scorer, despite being too young to participate within the league in the first place. This was the beginning of a legend, as the whisperings of a young technician who had an eye for goal were starting to grow louder. It did not take long for Pele to be discovered by Waldemar de Brito, an accomplished striker and member of Brazil's 1934 squad, who had an eye for talent. As fate would have it, in his post-playing days, De Brito served as a youth coach for Pele's father's old team and would conduct several missions in Bauru. As the legend goes, De Brito exclaimed that Pele would become the greatest player in the world upon witnessing him play. By 1956, Pele was offered a tryout with Santos, who were back-to-back Brazilian champions, glittering with gems such as goalkeeper Gilmar and legendary Brazilian midfielder Zito. After a trial period, Pele was quickly given an opportunity with the first team, starting in a friendly against G.O.A.T, a local team nearby. Pele scored 4 goals in a 6-1 victory and was instantly promoted to the first team. In a matter of weeks, crowds of up to 10,000 were showing up to watch Santos training sessions. Pele made his full league debut at 15 years old on September 7, 1956, scoring in a 7-1 routing of Corinthians de Santo André. It did not take long for others to see what De Brito was talking about, and by the end of the season, Pele was a regular starter. By the following season, at just 16 years old, he finished as the leading goal scorer in the league, a foundation which he would continue to build upon. Pele started his career for Santos as an armador, or supporting midfielder, assisting to maintain the flow of play. However, soon after his demonstrations, he was placed in a more advanced role as an attacking midfielder in the number 10, a massive accomplishment for a 16-year-old. After an injury to the club's mainstay and starting number 10, Vasconcelos, Pele was appointed to the role and given the number 10 shirt, which once he was given, he would never let go. And it was at this moment that Pele was born. This transformative moment of earning the number 10 shirt was a historical event. In his autobiography, Why Soccer Matters, the legend states that this was when he began to take on a new identity, an alter ego. He writes, "I started thinking of Pele as a separate identity. Edson was a poor kid from Bauru, the son of Don Dino and Donna Celeste, the boy who desperately missed his family back home. Pele was a rising star who, while still a teenager, would become a separate icon and perhaps the world's most famous athlete." He continued, "Edson could be reserved and shy, but Pele could play the crowd and flash a smile for the cameras. They were the same person but represented 2 different realities, one familiar to me and one that was new, constantly changing, and sometimes a little scary." He was an overnight star, seamlessly adapting to the rigors of professional football. The countless hours of dedication of he and his father were quickly starting to pay off. He once again finished as the league's leading goal scorer from the number 10 position, firmly establishing himself as a fan favorite. Pele was now beginning to be known across the nation, and within a mere 10 months of his professional debut, after the insistence of national team members such as Gilmar and Zito, Pele became the youngest player to ever receive a call-up to La Seleção. In his debut for Brazil, at just 16 years of age, Pele scored his first goal, becoming the youngest player in the nation's history to do so. Despite losing 2-1, the youngster had proven his worth and solidified his spot on the team. He carried this momentum into the following year, winning his first national title with Santos in 1958, while scoring an astounding 58 goals over 38 appearances. This was the beginning, and by the end of the season, the only number that could be ignored was his age, as the 17-year-old was selected to Brazil's 1958 World Cup redemption squad. By the 1958 World Cup, Brazil were looking to avenge their 1954 quarterfinals exit at the hands of Ferenc Puskás and Hungary, who were seen as one of the most dominant national squads of the day. La Seleção, with the likes of legendary players such as Didi, Jalma Santos, Bellini, Mario Zagallo, Zito, Garrincha, and now Pele, who were now seen as one of the finest squads in the world. La Seleção lined up in the 4-2-4 formation, which was one of the most prevalent of the day. Brazil's rendition of the system involved dominating possession in a way that each man in advanced space was given time on the ball to express his flair, creativity, aesthetic, and improvisation that has come to be known as the Samba style. This task was slightly less possible with a four-man attacking line, and to expand the canvas of his operators in order to maximize their attacking output, manager Vicente Fiola applied a system that has become legendary. Fiola's back line consisted of a conventional back four that operated in a non-conventional way. Left back and legendary fullback Nilton Santos was given license to frequently advance up the flanks, a less conventional method. This, at times, left a three-man back line with Captain Geraldo Bellini and Orlando as a solid center-back pairing, with Jalma Santos as the fullback on the right flank. As arguably the best defender on the back line, Jalma Santos is one of the greatest fullbacks in Brazilian and football history. As an elite 1v1 defender, Jalma Santos was able to lock down the right flank on his own, often being able to handle 2v1 situations. His presence ensured that the midfield pairing of Didi and Zito could remain central and in proximity to their center backs. The two midfielders paired well and balanced each other to perfection, with Zito in a more defensive-minded role. As a tidy and organized ball winner, Didi had more freedom to advance the ball to link the attack. In this way, he could make himself a vertical and diagonal outlet from the back to the front line, enabling easier and more efficient transitions. Didi had tremendous vision, with an eye for a decisive pass and the technique to make space for him to deliver it. Fiola had the presence of mind to ensure that his midfielders were not overtasked and overwhelmed, while also maintaining a strong presence in the attack. Brazil's 4-2-4 was foundational and revolutionary for the time, and although the Brazilians did not invent the attacking fullback, they did perfect the method. At the spear of the attack were four players: the outside left, inside right, and outside right. The positioning of each attacker depended on the tactical and systematic necessities of the manager. For example, if a manager fielded two clinical finishers, then the wingers would remain wide and feed them crosses, ensuring that their operational areas were expanded. Fiola's Brazil had Zagallo as the outside left, and the crafty attacker had incredible stamina, which activated him within a larger operational area. Fiola instructed Zagallo to drop deeper into the midfield when out of possession, with defensive obligations. His willingness to sacrifice for the team ensured that balance was maintained at both tiers, with a stronger defensive presence without compromising the offense. With Zagallo operating in the midfield, this expanded the operational area of the inside left. 17-year-old Pele. Pele's unique skill set allowed for him to operate more freely in the attack due to his ability to operate in crowded space, a critical skill for Brazil's style of play. When midfielder Didi was held with defensive coverage, Pele was able to drop into the midfield, activated in the maneuvered phase of play, providing more space for himself and his striking partner, Vava. The two would work in tandem to exploit central attacking space, while Pele could work off Vava's shoulder in a center forward and shadow striker arrangement. On the right was Garrincha. As one of the greatest dribblers and Brazilian footballers of all time, Garrincha was given the entire right wing to himself, with Jalma Santos holding his position. Garrincha relished and encouraged confrontations with defenders, taking on as many as necessary. Marking Garrincha with only one man was a massive gamble, but his presence forced oppositional defenses to make the decision between doubling or tripling the threat on the wing or addressing the threats that were overloading the box. As each man remains within his operational area, vertical lines are provided from the back line to the central midfielders to the front, allowing for pure, direct delivery into space. Having one exceptional player can revolutionize a system, and having multiple exceptional players can revolutionize the game. With routes available on all channels to the back line, Brazil were able to alternate their modes of build-up play, with each route being equally as dangerous. With Pele and Zagallo frequently dropping into the midfield, it was extremely difficult for oppositional back lines to engage in man-marking assignments. This forced the opposition to play zonally, which provided more operational area for the attackers, and thus, each man had the most amount of attacking space to exploit. Garrincha would be activated on the right and would regularly absorb anywhere from 2 to 3 markers, providing space in areas all over the attacking third, and within critical attacking space. Pele and Zagallo's roaming movement would wreak havoc on defensive lines, leaving them confused and hesitant, and Brazil's short-range diagonal options available to the ball carrier allowed for line-breaking passes and flowing attacking football. As described in Jonathan Wilson's terrific work, Inverting the Pyramid, Pele was operating in the ponta de lança role, or the Brazilian shadow striker position. In this ponta de lança role, 17-year-old Pele was able to distinguish himself. It is his touch from both aerial and ground-bound through balls that served as the basis of the legend. El toque, the touch. The ability to trap and control the ball with a velvet foot was a South American staple. However, Pele's skill set was on another level. Not only could he receive whipped whizzing vertical delivery with little to no recoil on the ball, but he could also do so from aerial deliveries. This provided a massive tactical advantage to Brazil, as the back line or central midfielders could go over the top, where it was almost certain that Pele would receive the ball and maintain the play. Pele arrived at the World Tournament with a slight knock that kept him out of action for the first 2 matches, along with the outside right, Garrincha. Despite this, Brazil had maintained an undefeated record, starting off with a 3-0 victory over Austria and a 0-0 draw to England. Upon their return against legendary goalkeeper Lev Yashin and the USSR, Brazil were able to apply their system to full effect. With the tactical freedom that Brazilian manager Vicente Fiola gave his men, his squad was given the green light to demonstrate their flair and creativity. The body feints, the lightness of foot, the agility, the speed, the change of direction, in addition to the touch, were where Pele took his game and the game of football to the next dimension. Los Seleção were audacious and relentless in their attack, conducting attacks in all areas of the oppositional back line, with slick movement and dribbling in abundance. Rhythm and tempo changes allowed for Brazil to exploit the space to maximum effect. After assisting Vava's game-winning goal against Lev Yashin and the USSR, and then going on to score the game-winning goal against Wales in the quarterfinal, Pele immortalized himself, scoring a hat-trick to propel Brazil to a 5-2 victory over France in the semi-final. In the finals against host Sweden, one of the tournament's frontrunners, his 2 goals helped to seal the victory and earn Brazil's first World Cup championship. On June 29, 1958, a 17-year-old captivated the world and stole the show. The teenager, unstifled by pressure and expectations, immortalized himself and became a national treasure. By 1959, Santos was competing at the pinnacle of Brazilian football, which was arguably the highest standard of football in the world at the time, with the most technical and entertaining style of play. The Taça Brasil was the gold standard in which the finest teams competed for the championship, in addition to the highly contested Paulista Championship. In their inaugural year, Santos finished second in each competition, with Pele scoring a further 45 goals on the season. It is 1960 that the golden years began, and Santos elevated themselves as the finest club in world football. Santos, like Brazil, operated in the 4-2-4 formation. However, legendary Santos manager Luiz Alonso Perez, also known as Lula, applied subtle tweaks to his system to maintain a staggering attacking output. Lula played a staggered 4-2-4 with movement from his fullbacks, an attacking central midfielder, and a ponta de lança. This left one holding midfielder within the space in the attacking phase of play. Thus, consistent balance was required, which caused Pele to withdraw into the midfield, introducing the concept of the hybrid attacker, who would withdraw into the midfield more frequently, working as an inverted point of a balanced attacking line. Pele was the ideal man for this role, since he could dribble within crowded space and drive at defensive lines with the ball at his feet, with his teammates advance. The line remained advanced in the maneuvered build-up phase, with forward movement from one of the fullbacks, normally Lima, holding midfielder Zito would shade the side of the vacant flank in defense, with Mangalvio also gaining proximity over the top, while still maintaining an attacking threat. With so many numbers forward in the attack, Santos played an opposite attacking style to Brazil, and the club side always had numbers in proximity, as opposed to attackers operating in expanded, maximized space. Although the skill set has become commonplace in today's game, in Pele's era, players were positional specialists. Systems were more rigid, and formations were everything. It was not until the Dutch football revolution of the 1970s that total football was certified as a dominant footballing system. Santos resembles the systems that are now played by the world's most elite football clubs, who advance 5 or 6 men in the attack, with an elite holding midfielder guarding the space. Pele fits the mold of the perfect modern attacker, whose scoring ability was equally matched by his vision. Part of his skill set revolved around his ability to adapt to the flow of play. For Santos, Pele's ponta de lança role was slightly altered, as he spent much more time dropping into the midfield to link and control the flow of play. What made Santos so dangerous was their oppositional stance to rehearse patterns of attacking play, as attacking styles such as Route 1 were taking shape, involving a coordinated and collective understanding. Santos employed a highly unpredictable, intuitive attacking style within critical attacking space. That is to say, each man was reacting to each other in a new attacking scenario each time, with no rhyme or reason. Pure street football of the highest order and at the highest level. With a lack of predictability, the opposition could not identify their attacking patterns and were left guessing the entire match, frantically attempting to fill the space. By dropping deep into neutral space, he could then turn and gain a full head of steam to attack the opposition. However, Pele was equally comfortable slowing the game down to his own pace, demonstrating his ability to be a complete controller and midfield general within the match. There is no way that we can explain Pele's impact at Santos without giving special mention to Antonio Wilson Vieira Honorio, also known as Coutinho. Coutinho, like Pele, started his career with Santos as a boy and was rapidly called up to the first team after a series of dazzling displays. Also like Pele, Coutinho was adept at operating within confined areas, either as a dribbler or in the maneuvered attacking phase, with 1 and 2 touch play. However, as a striker, Pele himself admits that Coutinho was more ruthless than him. Coutinho was a perfect freestyling partner for Pele, and the two were liquid. Having 2 ice-cold operators in confined spaces provides numerous attacking solutions within the most critical area of the attacking third. These players are completely unfazed in the face of intense defensive resistance. Add to this the presence of Pepe, Santos' second leading all-time goal scorer, as the outside left, and accessory pieces such as Dorval, an attacking midfielder Mengalvio, and you have an exceptional attacking squad, where once play involved a series of direct passes to preserve the team's shape. Pele's movement allowed for more fluent transitions due to his ability to receive the ball and gain positive yards through his dribbling and agility. And increasing the passes and rhythm of the build-up made them hard to track in airtight confined areas. They were capable of doing this with Pele working within a withdrawn role. The wide attackers would maintain width, occasionally crossing or cutting inside, but mainly working to reset the play to maintain control in the attacking phase. Additionally, the fullbacks would advance and provide overlapping support for numerical superiority within the space, allowing the winger to gain proximity to the center forwards. With the center forward withdrawing into the midfield, there was a vertical link available to the midfield line for line-breaking passes, and the player within this role was licensed to locate pockets, receive the ball, and then drive at defenders, disorganizing and disorienting them in the transition. Alternatively, the receiver of the ball in critical space, usually Pele, would withdraw higher up into the attacking third to locate a pocket, and then act as the point man. He could dribble at defenders for a shot, or dispatch to a teammate. This critical attack, perfected by Santos, made them one of, if not the most exciting and dangerous attacking teams in the world. And the opposition did not take the constant attack of vulnerable space lightly. Pele was constantly subjected to crunching and highly aggressive tackles. Oppositional defenses would devise intricate defensive schemes to attempt to control him or take him out of the match. Time and time again, Pele got up, and by the end of the match, the opposition would normally bend to Santos' attacking will. 1962 is when Santos had fully blossomed and the system was at full capacity. By the end of the season, they were confirmed as the finest football club in the world, winning the Paulista Championship, the Taça Brazil, Santos and Brazil's first Copa Libertadores, and an Intercontinental Cup, in an epic duel against fellow legend Eusebio and Benfica. In doing so, they became the first club in world football to win a continental treble, and in defeating one of the best clubs in the world at the time, Santos established their dominance on the world stage. Between 1959 and 1961, Santos were frequently touring the world, adding another 20 to 30 competitive and exhibition matches against various clubs. Pele had amassed an astounding 102 goals, and by the end of 1961, it was 110. By the end of the 1962 club season, he had added another 55, with excellent momentum going into the World Cup. Expectations were sky high, as the world watched in intrigue, wondering if the Brazilians could retain their status as world champions for the second time in a row.